Here's a recap of a 1+ hour trip I did in a 2021 Model 3 long range in minus 16 degrees Fahrenheit on January 1st, 2022. I started the trip with 99% battery and 354 miles of range. The car was parked in my attached garage where it was a balmy 18 degrees in there. The Model 3 was also plugged in overnight, and I preconditioned and heated up the car using the scheduled departure feature in the Tesla app. The trip was 64 miles. It was minus 16 degrees Fahrenheit at its coldest, with minimal wind. The cabin heat was on manual and fluctuated between 70 and 80 degrees and low and medium fan. The drive was relatively flat and mostly freeway. I drove with normal driving habits, going about 70 miles per hour for the freeway bits and 0 to 10% over the speed limit elsewhere. And I also drove with chill mode on. When I started driving, even though I set up the scheduled precondition the night before, the car still wanted to warm up the battery some more, but only for the first few miles, which you can see here. But before I took off, I put in my destination into the navigation and checked out the trip estimator. You can see that the estimator says I should arrive with 72% battery, but I didn't drive off right away. I tried setting up a camera inside the car, but was having issues with the really cold windows, and I also had to run to the house for a minute to grab one last thing. All of that took about 10 minutes of sitting in the garage, unplugged, while the car stayed in park and heating the car moderately, and then I finally left. What I didn't notice until I got further down the road is that my original trip estimation of 72% battery arrival had now changed to 68%. At first, I was really confused as how this could be, but now I'm only slightly confused, but I think I have an answer. I was originally confused because I didn't think the trip estimation, or the gray line, could ever change, and that only the green actual trip line could change. I could not find any good answers or information online about the gray line changing and how it does so. But after discussing with some people in various forums, I think we found a good guess. I think that the time I waited in the garage was the key. After setting my trip, I never put the car in drive, which I think needs to happen before the gray line becomes locked. The fact that my car was sitting there using a lot of battery to keep the battery and car warm changed the trip estimation drastically in this cold weather. And so when I finally started my trip, the gray line had changed to that 68% arrival estimation. So that was interesting to see and learn about. Other than that, the trip was fairly uneventful. Not too many people were out driving in this weather. In summary, a 64-mile trip ended up using 118 miles, or 54 extra miles of range. So 45.8% of my miles were lost. Or as others have put it, my battery efficiency on this trip was only 54.2%. Ouch. We also used 23 kilowatt hours for an average of 366 watt hours per mile, which is clearly high as well. The trip estimator was still pretty accurate despite the extreme conditions. After the adjustment to a 68% arrival range, we arrived with 66% battery. So a little off in the wrong direction, and those last 2 percentage points came in the last 6 miles or so. My guess is because the last bit of the trip was stop-and-go traffic, so the waste heat from the motors was far less, meaning the car had to work harder to keep the battery warm and happy. And also, the temperature dropped outside a few degrees towards the end, so there was even more heat to make up for. The main contributors of this large range inefficiency was, quite obviously, the fracking cold. I mean, I was going 70 miles per hour as well, which was part of the problem, but double-digit negative temperatures really sapped the battery here, and we had a good amount of heat on for most of the trip. This is why up north and in other cold climates, having as much range as possible is a must if you want to enjoy the same range and freedom that current gas cars offer. But with ranges getting longer and longer, and battery technology getting better at handling the cold, someday we won't be worrying as much about electric vehicle range no matter the temperature. It may be bitterly cold out here these days, but I still hope to see you up north.